We are just trying to figure out the audio to make sure everything's working on our end. Hã? Mas quer que eu fale o quê? Okay, if you can just talk a little bit with me. I am not able to hear you right now, but we are just trying to adjust the sound of the room. We are trying, I can't hear what you're saying, but we are trying to get your sound to the whole room. I'm far from the computer, but if you could keep talking just a little bit so we can make sure everyone in the room can hear you. Oh, that's great. I can hear you now.
Yes, I sounded like I was getting an echo. So that's going to be a problem. I hear myself echoing.
Oh, okay, I'll see if we can figure that out.
Well, a microphone needs to be mute while mine is open.
Yeah. I'll see what we can do. Just a second.
Okay. Do you need me to keep talking?
I don't think so, not right now, but I'll talk to you in a little bit.
Okay, I'm going to be the echo.
Okay, thank you.
Sentiram o spoiler, né? Muito boa tarde a todos. Em instantes, retomaremos a segunda parte do seminário 5G.br, edição São Paulo. Lembramos a todos que teremos primeiramente uma palestra com a participação de uma personalidade internacional, considerada um dos criadores da internet no mundo, como vocês puderam ver uma provinha, Van Surf. E um painel que será o terceiro e último deste seminário, com o tema 5G numa perspectiva global, como a tecnologia contribui para as metas do desenvolvimento sustentável, moderado pelo ministro das Comunicações, Fábio Faria. Estão disponíveis equipamentos de áudio para a tradução simultânea do inglês para o português, visto que teremos palestra e painel no idioma inglês agora à tarde. Então, fiquem à vontade. Os aparelhos estão disponíveis do lado de fora do auditório. We also inform that we provide headphones for simultaneous translation from Portuguese to English. Pedimos a todos que tomem seus assentos e que, por gentileza, deixem os celulares no modo silencioso. Retomaremos o seminário em instantes. Obrigada. Aproveitamos para agradecer a presença de todos que vieram e acompanharam os debates pela manhã e também visitaram os espaços com demonstrações de aplicações da tecnologia 5G. Essa tecnologia que chegou há uma semana aqui na capital. São Paulo é uma das primeiras capitais brasileiras a receber o 5G. Todas terão o sinal até o fim de setembro. Brasília foi a primeira. Mais uma vez, muito boa tarde a todos. Daremos então início neste momento à segunda parte do Seminário 5G.br, edição São Paulo. A nossa tarde se inicia de uma maneira muito especial. Uma palestra muito aguardada e inédita para muitas pessoas. Temos o prazer e a honra de receber no Seminário 5G.br nada menos que um dos criadores do protocolo TCP/IP e da arquitetura, a criação da internet em todo o mundo. O norte-americano Vinton Gray Cerf, conhecido como Vint Cerf. Ele que é um dos grandes responsáveis por estarmos aqui hoje discutindo a evolução da tecnologia com a chegada do 5G. E já que estamos falando de internet, a participação dele será virtual por meio de videoconferência. Para conversar com Vint Cerf, também temos a honra e o prazer de convidar para subir ao palco o engenheiro brasileiro Demi Getchko, considerado o pai da internet no Brasil. Demi, seja muito bem-vindo. A palavra está com o senhor.
Muito bem. Boa tarde a todos. É minha função aqui inicial introduzir o Vint e depois, eventualmente, trocar algumas ideias com ele. Se for o caso, eu não quero esticar a introdução para não perdermos mais tempo, estamos um pouco atrasados. Ops, tudo bem. Então, é uma honra estar falando do Vint, que é uma pessoa que eu conheço pessoalmente aí do começo da internet brasileira, 89, quando a gente registrou o .br, e sempre foi uma figura absolutamente notável. Existe, na verdade, um triunvirato daquela época, o John Postel, que nos deu o BR, o Vint Cerf e o Steve Crocker, sendo que o Postel faleceu em 98, perdemos ele, o Vint está firme e tudo mais. O Vint tem várias características bastante interessantes próprias. Por exemplo, ele deve estar interno com colete, ele sempre anda em extrema rigidez de elegância. A única vez que eu vi ele com camiseta foi na reunião de 95 em Honolulu, que ele tinha uma camiseta escrita IP Everywhere, quer dizer, IP em todo lugar, não outra coisa eventual. Em suma, o Vint começou com Packet Radio, né, rádio sobre rede de pacotes. A rede de pacotes, em geral, começa com a invenção do Paul Baran e depois David Davis e o próprio Leonard Kleinrock, que eu tive sorte de visitar, está vivo na UCLA e trabalhando forte nisso. Então, essa tecnologia de pacotes, que também deu origem à pilha iso-ose, foi a tecnologia que substituiu a comutação de circuitos, que todos se lembravam da telefonia, e foi muito importante. A internet em si, vou fazer um último comentário antes de passar para o Vint, para não perder tempo. A internet em si é sucessora da ARPANET. A ARPANET é uma rede que foi financiada com dinheiro do Departamento de Defesa americano, mas na minha visão, e eu acho que compartilhada por outros pioneiros, é uma rede construída com espírito totalmente aberto, imersa na cultura do ano em que foi inaugurada, né? A ARPANET foi inaugurada em 69, o mesmo ano de Woodstock, um festival de contracultura e música na época, e o pessoal que participou da criação da ARPANET eram universitários daquela época, portanto, isso mais ou menos era o clima que perpassava esse time de criadores. Na sala do Klein Rock tem uma placa dando 29 de outubro de 69 como a data em que os primeiros pacotes entre duas máquinas, a máquina da Califórnia, UCLA, Universidade de Califórnia, Los Angeles, e do Stanford Research Institute, trocaram os pacotes pela primeira vez. Está na sala 3420, a famosa sala do nascimento da internet. E depois disso nós tivemos algumas tentativas de protocolo em cima disso. Steve Crocker escreveu RFC1, depois o Vint se envolveu num protocolo chamado Host-to-Host Protocol, e depois ele, mais o Bob Kahn, se envolveu no TCP, Transmission Control Protocol, que sobrevive há tanto tempo. O TCP tem a inauguração oficial em 83, quando foi adotado pela ARPANET, e um pouco antes, em 76, eu acho, ele foi dividido em duas camadas, TCP e IP. E o IP era uma camada para grudar os sistemas autônomos que formam a coxa de retalhos da internet. A internet é uma rede de milhares de redes, e essas milhares de redes são coladas com IP. E eu acho que isso foi tão bem sucedido que esse protocolo chamado Interrede Protocolo, protocolo entre redes, Internet Protocolo, deu nome à internet. A internet chama-se Internet, porque é uma rede formada por várias redes coladas por IP. E a criação a gente deve ao Vint, que hoje é evangelista da internet. Eu vou terminar contando, ele teve uma entrevista longa quando ele entrou na Google, e a Google perguntou para ele que título você quer assumir aqui na empresa. Ele falou, talvez arquiduque. Falou, não, arquiduque não é uma boa ideia, porque o último arquiduque foi Francisco Ferdinando, em 1914, quando mataram ele, começou a Primeira Guerra Mundial. Então tá bom, então eu não seria arquiduque, serei evangelista. Evangelista no sentido grego da palavra, que é propagador de boas novas. E disseram, bom, isso pode dar um caráter religioso. Então eu falei, eu serei um geek evangelista, que parece um geek ortodoxo, um ortodoxo geek, portanto, portador de boas novas para a internet como um todo. E atualmente acho que a grande batalha do Vint, e nós também estamos ajudando no que der, é manter a internet unida, única, e não quebrada em pedaços, não uma splinternet, como dizem por aí, mas sim uma internet única e uma infraestrutura em cima da qual possamos desenvolver produtos e serviços como todos vocês estão acostumados a ver. Então, como eu falei, é uma honra poder estar introduzindo o Vint, que eu tive, digamos, a oportunidade de conviver na época da ICANN, e fui chair do board da ICANN por vários anos, e estivemos por aí, né, nessa caminhada toda. Vint, é uma honra, it's an honor to have you with us, and please, you have the floor. No sound. We are without sound. We are not hearing you.
I don't know what to tell you.
It's okay now.
Oh, there we go. Now I can hear, you can hear me. The trouble is, I can hear me. So we need to do something about the microphones that are in the auditorium. Can you still hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay,
Yes.
I can see a thumb going up and I'm not getting echo. Okay, thank you. Again, obrigado, Demi. Always such a pleasure to see you and to hear you. I'm going to switch to slides now because we're running very late, and so I'm going to try to run through some preliminary material that I hope will set the stage for some discussion. So if I could get the slides up on the screen, please.
O momento para discussão. Gostaria de ver os slides, por favor.
I can't tell whether the
Eu
slides are
não
up.
consigo ver se os slides, eu não consegui ver se temos os slides ou não.
I'm not seeing, from where I am, I'm not seeing
eu
the
não
slides, so I don't know if you are either.
Eu não sei se vocês estão conseguindo ver os slides. Eu, de onde eu estou, não estou conseguindo ver.
They're trying to fix it, I think.
And now, unfortunately, I can't hear
Agora,
Demi either.
infelizmente, eu não consigo escutar o Demi também.
I have the feeling that we have
Eu
work to
tenho
do
uma
on this
sensação
technology.
que temos que trabalhar um pouco com relação a essa tecnologia.
I'm not hearing
Temos
anything
ainda
right now.
trabalho para fazer. Não consigo escutar nada neste momento.
We are hearing you very well, but without the
Estamos
slides. If you
escutando o
can-
senhor muito
Demi,
bem,
I
mas sem
can't
os
hear you at all.
slides. Demi, eu não consigo escutar. Eu não consigo te ouvir.
Okay, I can see the
Eu
slides.
consigo ver os slides.
Oh, now I'm hearing Portuguese.
Eu estou ouvindo português agora.
Well, I will try to walk you
Bom,
through
eu
these
vou
slides. Could we get the
tentar
next slide,
mostrar os
please?
slides. O próximo slide, por favor.
Could you advance to the next slide?
Podemos passar para o próximo slide, por favor?
So Demi mentioned
Então,
to you that,
Demi mencionou.
I'm sorry, this has been,
Eu
I am
peço
hearing
desculpas.
Ease translation. It's causing me great confusion.
Eu estou
I don't
ouvindo
know
a
how to
tradução
deal with
e eu
that.
estou ficando
I guess I could
confuso com isso.
turn
Não
off
consigo
my
lidar
sound,
com
but leave
isso.
my microphone on.
Eu posso deixar, talvez.
Maybe that's the right way to do it.
Eu posso.
So I will try. Can you,
Bom, vamos
can someone
tentar,
tell
porque eu
me
estou
or wave
ouvindo
a
a
hand or
tradução.
say that
Será
you
que
can still
alguém
hear me?
pode me dizer que vocês ainda conseguem me escutar?
Or maybe say something in the
Ou
chat.
dizer
Well,
alguma
I'll
coisa?
pretend that you can hear
Bom,
me
eu
and
vou
we'll go on
fingir
from
que
here.
vocês estão
This
me
was the original
escutando.
configuration
Bom, essa
of
foi a
the ARPANET
configuração
experiment that
original
Demi
da
told you
experiência
about.
com ARPANET
I
que o Demi
participated in it
mencionou.
as a
Eu
graduate
participei
student.
disso
It was
como
very successful.
aluno,
And the
como
result
aluno na
of the
faculdade. Foi enorme
experiment with
sucesso. E o
packet
resultado
switching
do
in the United
experimento
States was
nos
the
Estados
design
Unidos
of the
foi o
internet, which
design
is
da
in the next
internet
slide. So
que
if you would
está no
switch to the next
próximo
slide,
slide.
please.
Então, se você passar para o próximo slide, por favor.
So I leapt
Então,
forward several years during the evolution of the TCP/IP
Passei muitos
protocols.
anos durante
I just want to
os
emphasize that
protocolos
by
TCP/IP. E em
1977, we had done
1997,
enough
até
work
lá, já
to show
havíamos
that
feito
3 different
trabalho
kinds of packet
suficiente
switch
para
nets
mostrar
could
que
be interconnected
três
using
tipos
the new
diferentes de
internet
redes
protocols. A
poderiam ser
mobile packet radio
usados.
network in the San Francisco Bay
Mobile,
Area
uma
and
rede
a packet
móvel
satellite
na área
network
de
over
São
the
Francisco,
Atlantic,
uma
which
rede
linked
de
the western part of
satélite
Europe
sobre
to
o
the eastern part of the
Atlântico
United
que
States. And in
ligava
this
o
demonstration,
leste ao oeste
we
dos
had a
Estados
mobile
Unidos.
vehicle in the Bay
Nessa
Area, San
demonstração,
Francisco
tínhamos
Bay Area,
veículo móvel na
transmitting
área de São
packets
Francisco,
to USC
transmitindo
Information
pacotes
Sciences Institute
para
in Los Angeles,
o
about
Instituto
400
de
miles away.
Ciências
But the
Americanas
traffic
em
was
Los
routed
Angeles.
through the
Agora, o
ARPANET
tráfego
all the
era
way to Europe,
rodeado
back
pela
across
ARPANET
the
até a
Atlantic through the
Europa,
packet satellite network,
através do
and then down to
Atlântico,
Los
com essa
Angeles
rede
through
de
the ARPANET
satélite
again.
e até Los
And it
Angeles
all
pela
worked. And
ARPANET.
for
E
those
tudo
of you who are
funcionava muito
familiar with
bem. E
software,
vocês que
you can
conhecem
appreciate it's
software,
always a
vocês
miracle when
podem ver que é
software
sempre
works. We were
milagre quando
experiencing that
software
just today as
funciona.
we were setting
E
up this
vimos
call.
isso hoje
So
com
let's
essa
go to the next
ligação aqui
slide.
hoje. Então agora vamos passar para o próximo slide.
The internet was turned on
A
in
internet foi
1983,
ligada em
and within a few
1983.
years,
Em
other agencies of the
apenas
U.S.
alguns
government
anos,
decided they
outras
wanted to
agentes
build
do
their own
governo
networks and
americano
interconnect
quiseram
them
criar suas
into
próprias
the public
redes,
internet.
interconectá-las com a
The
rede
National Science
pública.
Foundation, the
A
Department of
Fundação
Energy,
de
and the
Ciências
National Aeronautics and Space
Nacionais
Administration
e
built their own
outras
backbone networks
fundações criaram
and
seus
connected them
próprios
together with the
backbones
ARPANET,
e
forming a
juntaram
much
tudo
larger
isso com
internet
ARPANET,
system. The
formando
primary reason that
sistema
I
maior
show
de
you
rede.
this is
E
to
eu
say
estou
that
mostrando
the
isso
success of
para
the internet in
dizer que o
part was the
sucesso
result
da
of
rede
governments deciding to invest in
o
it.
resultado dos
And the same
governos
argument
querer
can be made
investir
in
aqui.
Brazil,
O
where
mesmo
educational networking played a
argumento
very
pode
important role
acontecer
with
onde
the
rede
introduction of internet
educacional
in that country.
teve papel muito
If we could go to
importante
the
com a
next slide.
introdução da internet aqui. Próximo slide.
This is what the internet looks like today. Actually, I am cheating. This chart was actually drawn in 1999, over 20 years ago, but it allows me to illustrate how diverse the internet has become. There are tens of thousands of networks that are all interconnected. Each of the operators of the networks work independently of each other. They choose what hardware and software to use. They decide with whom they will interconnect their networks and on what terms and conditions. There is no central control, with one exception, the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers, on whose board Demi Getchko once served, decides how to allocate domain names and IP or Internet Protocol addresses in a unique way so that those identifiers are assigned, not assigned to two different people or two different organizations. So each assignment is unique. That's the only coordinating component in the Internet architecture, is to make sure that names and addresses are uniquely assigned. Otherwise, it's a highly distributed and concurrent environment. Next slide, please. So here we know, as you must, that not everyone in the world has access to the internet, and that is something that needs to be corrected. It's my belief that being online is valuable, not only from the standpoint of having access to information, but it also has a potential multiplier for economic development. There are many reasons why only 60% of the world's population has direct access to the internet. In some cases, there literally is no infrastructure. In some cases, it's too costly for some participants to pay for access to the internet. And so costs need to be driven out, or perhaps subsidies have to be provided in order to make the internet access affordable. Sometimes there are policies that have been adopted that in some sense interfere with the implementation and spread of internet. In some parts of the world, governments are fully in charge of communications and may or may not be prepared to invest in internet infrastructure, or they may not have policies that encourage the private sector to invest in and build the infrastructure necessary to support the internet. And finally, even if all other things are in place, things are affordable, infrastructure is available, if people don't know how to make best use of the internet, how to take advantage of its technology, take advantage of its connectivity, use it in order to create new work and create new businesses, if that knowledge is not available, then the internet may not succeed in delivering its promise. If we can go to the next slide. Now, here is a picture of the growing undersea cable infrastructure on this planet. And I can tell you that I have been extremely surprised at the level of investment in subsea infrastructure to link the continents together. It has reached a point now where companies like mine at Google can afford to build their own cable in order to connect their data centers together and also to connect the data centers to the rest of the public internet. There are islands in the middle of the Atlantic and the Pacific that are obtaining support for undersea cable connectivity. For example, the World Bank underwrote the cost of connecting the islands of Vanuatu to the internet using undersea cable. So this is a very important and continuing development, continued investment in cable interconnects in order to link the various continents of this planet together. But there's more to connectivity than undersea cable. So let's go to the next slide. Now here you see just an illustration of what's coming. All of you, I'm sure, are aware that low Earth orbiting satellites have become the latest new communications technology to permit access to the internet literally from any place on the surface of the planet. Starlink is farthest along in its deployment, but others, O3b is in operation in medium Earth orbit, and OneWeb and Cooper are preparing their satellites for launch as well. The consequence of this is that it will be hard to avoid access to the internet literally from anywhere on the planet, including the surfaces of the ocean. And that's a very important development. One thing I would also mention, and considering the title of your conference, the telecommunication systems, the mobile telecommunication systems are also introducing substantial ability to access the internet with smartphones. And for many people around the world, their first introduction to internet services will be through a smartphone. So that implementation of 5G and the future implementation of 6G, together with the undersea cables and the low Earth orbiting satellites and physical infrastructure on land, whether that's optical fiber or coaxial cable or radio links, all say that any person on the planet in the next decade should be able to get access to the internet. Let's go to the next slide. Many of you, I'm sure, have heard this term Internet of Things, and really all that is about is programmable devices that have the ability to interact with the internet. And some of them have surprised me. You'll see at the top and bottom of the screen in the middle, there is a guy with an internet-enabled surfboard. And I remember being very surprised to hear that he had been out on the water waiting for the next wave and getting bored, and decided to put a laptop into his surfboard so he could surf the internet while he's waiting for the next wave. He put a Wi-Fi service at the rescue shack, and now he actually sells this as a product, an internet-enabled surfboard. There are lots of other funny stories. In the lower left-hand corner, you see a light bulb. I used to tell jokes that someday every light bulb would have its own internet protocol address, thinking, haha, isn't that funny? In fact, it turns out that there are light bulbs that are internet-enabled, such as the Hue light bulb from Philips that you can control from your mobile. There are many, many thousands of other devices that are internet-enabled and will be, and that I think we should be prepared for. There may be billions of these things as part of our internet environment as the rest of this decade unfolds. Next slide, please. So here are some, but not all, of the things that need to be done in order to make the internet a more useful and safer environment than it is today. I've already mentioned the Internet of Things, and I just draw your attention to how important it is that devices that we depend on be reliable and safe, and maintain our privacy, are secure, and they interoperate with each other with different brands, and finally that they have a certain amount of autonomy, by which I simply mean if you have an internet-enabled office or an internet-enabled house, you don't want them to stop working if the internet connection breaks. So you need the devices to be able to run more or less on their own until the internet connection comes back. I could not overemphasize the importance of reliability and safety and privacy. You don't want, for example, webcams in your home, which you would like to get access to be reassured that everything is okay. You don't want the rest of the world to have access to those same cameras. So all of these issues have to be satisfactorily resolved. To make matters even more complicated, we've discovered that the internet is an amplifying system, which doesn't necessarily know the difference between good information and bad information. It simply amplifies anything that shows up, makes it more accessible to the rest of the world, propagates it through social networking, drawing people's attention to good information and bad information equally well. So we worry that this platform propagates misinformation and disinformation. Oh, yes, thank you. So we are all focused on how to defend against being confused or misled by bad information in the internet. And one definite way to defend against that is to use critical thinking, our wetware up here, to ask questions like, where did this information come from? Is there any corroborating evidence for assertions that are being made? Can I imagine why the party who put this up might have done so to convince me to believe something I shouldn't believe? So we need to teach people how to think critically about what they see and hear, not only on the internet, but in all the other media as well. But that leads to the more general notion of digital literacy. It's important that we teach ourselves and our children what the hazards are of online environment and how to defend ourselves against them. We need tools like strong authentication in order to make sure that others don't take control over our accounts and take actions that we didn't authorize. So digital literacy really should be an important part of the normal curriculum as far back as kindergarten or first and second grade and so on, all the way up to college and beyond. The fourth bullet here draws attention to the fact that there are harmful behaviors that take place on the internet. And it's absolutely true that a person in one jurisdiction may be harmed by someone taking an action in another jurisdiction through the internet. And it's very important for us to recognize that we will need to cooperate with each other on a national basis in order to track down parties who are harming others. We need to hold people accountable for their actions. And we need to give citizens and organizations and governments tools to protect themselves, to have agency in this potentially hazardous environment. So we are looking for more cooperation both between governments and between governments and the private sector in order to create a safer environment for everyone. I have to say that some of the risks that we see in this online environment are the consequence of mistakes that people make when they write software. I'm sure Demi can confirm that we don't know how to write software that absolutely has no bugs. So we are faced with trying to fix problems that arise when we propagate software into the internet, especially, for example, in those Internet of Things devices. And so we need to do better research on programming environments to avoid making mistakes, and we need to have mechanisms for correcting the mistakes by uploading new software to devices that are reliant on them. The thing that's important there is to make sure that the receiving device knows where did the information come from and whether it still has integrity after it left the source, so that we don't accidentally ingest into our devices malware and software with malicious intent. And I'm sure you can appreciate the deep concern we have for artificial intelligence and machine learning as exhibited in self-driving cars or drones or robots. We would like very much for the software to be as bug-free as possible. Which leads to the last bullet on this slide, and that is that I think all of us who produce software and maintain it need to feel a very heavy burden of ethical duty to correct any mistakes that have been made and to work very hard to avoid any further mistakes in the software that we produce for other people to use. Let's go to the next slide. Now, I will try to keep this part very brief. This is not a joke and it is not a science fiction story. This is serious engineering that began in 1998. If we could go to the next slide. The Pathfinder project at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory landed successfully on Mars in 1997. And in the wake of that success, several of my colleagues and I met at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena, California in 1998. And we asked ourselves, what should we be doing in 1998 in order to be ready for what will be needed in 25 years later? And we concluded that we should seriously consider the design and construction of an interplanetary backbone network to support manned and robotic exploration. If we could go to the next slide, please.
E agora, no próximo slide, vamos ver a continuidade.
So you see here pictured orbiters and landers on Mars that have arrived since the mid-1990s. All of them have been using a packet switching technique for communicating information back to Earth and to receive instructions from Earth about where to go and what to do next. What was interesting is that the original design of the landers was to transmit data directly back to Earth to something called the Deep Space Network. The 70-meter dishes in 3 places around Earth, in Canberra, Australia, Madrid, Spain, and Goldstone, California. But the radios of the rovers that landed in 2004 overheated, and we had to back off on the duty cycle, and we only had 28 kilobits a second of capacity to transmit data back. So this raised a great deal of concern in the scientific community. However, the engineers said that the orbiters, which had been sent to Mars to map the surface of Mars to say where the rover should go, were still operating, and so we redesigned the protocols to be store and forward. So the rovers gather data, they hold onto the data until an orbiter comes overhead, they transmit the data up to the orbiter, and the orbiter holds onto the data until it gets to the right place in its orbit to transmit data back to Earth. It turns out, just because of the distances involved and the power levels available, that the information going from the rover up to the orbiter and from the orbiter to Earth, it goes at 128 kilobits a second, so it's 4 times faster than the original design. That's the prototype software of the Interplanetary Backbone Network. We are now running the most recent implementations of the Interplanetary Backbone protocols. They are on the International Space Station. It will be going to the moon in the Artemis missions that will be launched in the middle of this decade, and they are being tested at scale here on Earth using the cloud-based systems at Google and Amazon and Microsoft, and multiple Internet of Things implementations. So we are in the beginning phases of the implementation of an interplanetary backbone network. For those of you who have been following some of this, you know that we are on the cusp of, humanity is on the cusp of entering into a period of commercialization of space, not simply near-Earth orbit satellites, but also possibly mining on the moon or going further out in later decades to the asteroid belt and further Mars and other planets. And so we're beginning to see the same kind of thing that happened with the internet. It started out as a purely government-sponsored activity, but by 1989 it began to offer commercial service. I think the same thing will happen over the decades ahead. And so if we go to the last slide, what you'll see here is just a figurative notion that certainly by the middle of this century, we will have multiple satellites in orbit around the various planets. They will be communicating with each other through an interplanetary backbone, which by that time will be supporting not only manned and robotic exploration, but also potentially commercial activity. I know I'm way over time from what we originally planned. Let me just say that the reason that internet is important to you is that it has demonstrated the ability to create enormous economic value. It has demonstrated the ability to help people learn new skills, and it has opened up opportunity for collaborative activity on a global scale. I think it's very important that we take advantage of what we have learned, take advantage of what we know the internet can do, but also make a concerted effort to make this a safer and much more productive environment than it has become, given what we now know is possible in this global environment. So, Demi, I'll stop there. I am way over originally scheduled time, so I'll understand if we have to stop here.
Thank you very much. Very interesting presentation, and I hope we can keep optimistic about the future of the internet, keeping the single internet, not split it or break it between other
E não uma
parts.
internet
And,
dividida
we owe to
entre
you
outras partes.
good part of this good
E devemos
effort
grande
to
parte
keep the
a
internet
você,
solid
grande
and
parte
accessible
desses
to everyone.
esforços no sentido de
Is there any question
facilitar
here
acesso à
you want
internet
to
para todos.
address to
Alguma
Vint,
pergunta que
or
vocês
I
queiram
think we can finish?
fazer ao Vint,
Because we are
ou,
a little bit
caso
late.
contrário, encerramos
Vint, it
aqui
was
a interação com
enormous
ele.
pleasure
Vint,
to
olha,
have
foi um
you.
prazer realmente
Thank you
muito
very,
grande ter
very
você
much
aqui
for your
conosco. Muitíssimo
time
obrigado
here and
pelo
your
tempo que você dedicou a
very
nós
useful presentation here.
e pela
Again,
sua
thank you.
apresentação muito útil mesmo. Muito obrigado mais uma vez.